Hi everybody. Let's talk about the new emergency temporary standard that OSHA has in place. Over the weekend the federal court reinstated the ETS, the emergency temporary standard. You can find this if you Google 29 CFR 1910.501. That is the one for manufacturing and people of that nature. Now, don't confuse it with 1910.502. 502 is for the medical industry only, medical and healthcare type industry. And if you read through these two emergency temporary standards, it's pretty incredible what all is in here. So I thought we would spend just a minute or two talking about it, because these dates are coming up really quick. And I do know that there's a possibility that the Supreme Court may intervene. And even if they do, just my own personal opinion, I'm not comfortable enough that they will intervene by January the 10th. So if they do, great. If they don't, we better be ready, because January the 10th is going to be the new deadline. It once was January the 4th. Now OSHA says we'll give you to January the 10th. But after the 10th, when they start conducting those type inspections, just please understand that if you're not doing anything, they're probably going to cite you with a serious citation. And keep in mind, right now, that serious citation is $13,653. Now, we do know each year the OSHA citations increase by the rate of inflation, which I understand right now is about 6.7, 6.8%. So, kind of do the math, I guess we would say. So, again, you don't want to get caught doing this. Now, OSHA also says that they won't write citations until February the 9th if you are making progress or you're showing good faith that you're trying to get this program in place. But if you're doing nothing, then I would go ahead and get the checkbook out and get the pencil sharp, because I'm afraid the citations are about to come. So with all that said, let's figure out how we can get in compliance. Now, on your safety library, there are two things that we've done. We have implemented where you can download in Word 29 CFR 1910.501. That is the standard for manufacturing and people who have more than 100 or more employees. Keep that in mind. This standard is focused at employers who have 100 or more employees. If you're under that, now I'm not saying under that in a facility. If you have 50 in this city and it's 25 in this city and maybe another 50 at another city, but they're all under a corporate umbrella, you're over 100 employees. But if you're, so don't think because you have them separated in different facilities, you might be under 100 employees. I don't know that I would even attempt to play that game. I would try to make sure that if I was in that 100 or more range, I would go ahead and start implementing this program as quick as possible. Even over the holidays, I would start thinking about how we're going to get this in place, okay? So quickly, let's just take a look at it, and I'll review some of this stuff. Do we know everything about it? No, we don't. I'll be honest with you. There are some items that I have read that was a little disturbing. There were some items that I read that I said, well, okay, that makes sense. Now, give you a little background on myself. I was vaccinated back in February, the first shot, and then the second shot in March, which was the Moderna. And so I rolled on until about November, and I guess it wore off at that point, because at that point I caught COVID, and I'm about 3 weeks out of COVID right now as I sit and speak. So occasionally you may hear me cough or something, but that is still some of the lingering side effects of COVID, and I'll try my best to keep it at a minimum. But I will say this much, and I understand that vaccination should be freedom of choice. I have no doubt about that. But don't play around with this stuff. Let me say this. I saw real quick, I had it for 13 days, and I saw really quick how if you missed something or you hesitated on something, this stuff could go downhill really quick. So please just keep that in mind as we talk about this. But anyway, it says any business that fails to comply with the vaccine mandate, which affects companies with at least 100 employees, may face fines. For a serious violation, a fine can cost as much as $13,653. Catch this, per serious violation. per serious violation, okay? And also remember that OSHA fines are going to go up. It probably wouldn't surprise me if I found out soon that those OSHA serious citation was up over $14,000 because of the rate of inflation and the increase, but we'll have to wait and see about that. It says if your business acts in good faith, however, and you're doing the best you can to get up to date, the agency says it will give you to February the 9th, 2022. Remember, that drop dead date is actually January the 10th. But if you're trying to get there, they won't cite you until after sometime February the 9th. They'll give you that much time to get it together. But if you're doing nothing, keep in mind, they're probably going to cite you, okay? 100 more employees, if you're not prepared with an implementation plan, you better spend the holiday weekend figuring out how to track weekly testing. Because remember, if you can verify the vaccination and you have that on record, that's one thing, but those who are not vaccinated will have to undergo weekly testing and produce a negative. And there's still some question about, can they go out and have this done and bring, yes, but what if they do the self-test? They can't self-certify a self-test. Somebody has to be a witness, whether it's there at the employer's office, which is probably what they're going to want to do. But just keep those things in mind as we move through. Now, by January the 10th, you'll need to have these things in place. You'll need your ETS, your Emergency Temporary Standard Compliant Policy. Remember, we have to have a written policy. Also on the website, I mentioned a moment ago, or on your safety library, we have implemented and have put in Word, so you can download it, 29 CFR 1910.501. That's where you can read the regs. We have also put in a sample template, so you can write your written program. It's fill in the blank. You can do the editing. It's in Word. It's all that stuff. So make sure you at least have that in place. It says you may already have COVID safety policy, but this one will need to comply with the OSHA ETS. If you didn't bring it into compliance earlier, now's the time to start. So remember, that's on your safety library. You can look at the regs. You can also look at a sample policy for your ETS compliance. You want to make sure you do that. You'll need to collect vaccination data by then. You'll need to confirm which employees have been vaccinated. Right now, 2 shots are still considered fully vaccinated. You cannot just trust they've been, you'll have to see the documentation. It is not, keep this in mind, because this has come up a lot, it is not a HIPAA violation to ask to see someone's vaccination card. Now, I did read in the standard, and once you get into it and you read into it, I did read in the standard where when you start storing all of this vaccination, proof of vaccination, you're going to have to prove, or maybe even the negative test results, you're going to have to secure those just like any other medical records that you might keep in your facility. So that's going to be a task by itself. It says you need to require masks for the unvaccinated by then. And we're still talking about that January the 10th date, so let's make sure we have this in place. My strong recommendation is to buy disposable masks for people who work on site. Yes, this is a cost, but clean, fresh masks will be better than protecting people that have the same cloth mask that someone has worn for 3 weeks straight. And trust me, during all the mask mandates, I saw a lot of that. I saw people and even talked to people who told me they've been wearing the same mask for 2 weeks. And so, especially some that they've made out of different fabrics and so forth. I will say this, when we talk about the different face coverings, make sure that you look at the 1910.501 and you go to definitions, because it's going to give you the definitions of what the face covering is required. And there's some things in there you probably didn't know. So you want to make sure you go to that. It says, of course, you want to make sure you get those at least one a day, but you know what? If it's dirty or if something happens and it becomes unsanitary, I would allow more than one a day if that was the case. It says you also have the option of mandating vaccines for all of your employees, because remember this, it takes 2 to 4 weeks between doses. I did mine in February, then I went back in March, which was about 4 weeks to get my second dose. And it says after 2 weeks, the second dose is then considered fully vaccinated. Okay? So you want to keep that in mind. So you want to get your employees out there to get that first shot as quick as possible, because remember, January the 10th is well on its way, and February 9th is not very far behind it. So you don't have a lot of time to play around. If this is something that you want to implement and get into compliance with, then I would get moving on it as quickly as possible, because those dates are coming really, really quick, okay? Remember that even the mandatory vaccination rules, people can have legitimate health and religious exemptions. That's going to be something else that comes into play with this. Make sure that your policy states that. Make sure it states that those exemptions are going to be there. Now, when you look at the sample policy that's on the safety library, it has that information in there. So you want to look at it, make sure you don't need to edit it or adjust it a little bit, because you may need to make some adjustments for your facility or your state or wherever you might be. Whether they have a religious or health exemption or not, they must take the COVID test weekly, and you have to document the testing and keep records, especially if they're unvaccinated and they're having to turn in that negative test results every week. So keep that in mind. I could see, and here's something that's really good. It says if you have 3 unvaccinated employees, it's not that difficult to handle 3. But if you have 300, it might become a logistical nightmare. Because the paperwork, the filing, maintaining the documentations, it's going to be something else if you have that many unvaccinated employees, okay? Employees can use the self-testing kit, but they cannot self-certify. We talked about that just a moment ago. So they'll need to administer them at the office with someone watching to certify whether the test is negative or positive. If someone tests positive, then obviously they need to go home immediately. So here's the bottom line to this thing. It says this isn't just a nice suggestion from OSHA. OSHA can fine you up to $13,653 for each violation, and remember times 10 for repeat or willful. So that takes you up to $136,653, and so our recommendation is either get your business ready or get your checkbook out, because it looks like this thing is coming fairly quick. And again, even if the Supreme Court agrees to take it up, there's no guarantee they're going to have that unless someone puts a stay in place. There's no guarantee that it'll be all squared away by January 10th and or February the 9th. So something you may want to keep in mind. This is a copy. I don't know how well you can see this. This is a copy of 1910.501. A lot of stuff in here. Please take the time to sit down and go over this. I'll go ahead and tell you, break out your highlighter when you see this. I think this one is about 15 pages, I'm guessing, of a lot of stuff that's in there. So you want to make sure you do that. A couple of things I do want to read to you right quick, and especially when we get into the definitions. I mentioned that earlier. Make sure you go down the line and read those. I know a lot of times we just don't like to read the definitions, but I encourage you to do it on this particular one. It says face covering means a covering that, and this is under definitions, completely covers the nose and mouth. So if you have employees walking around with the face covering just over their mouth, that's going to get you a citation through OSHA. That's not allowed. It said it is made of 2 or more layers of breathable fabric that is tightly woven. It says fabrics that do not let light pass through when held up to a light source. If you hold that face covering up to the light and you can see light coming through, OSHA says that is not a face covering that meets the criteria of the standard, and you'll probably get cited for that too. It has to be secured with to the head with ties, ear loops, elastic bands, and go behind the head. If gathers are worn, they have to have 2 layers of fabric and be folded to make 2 layers. It has to fit snugly over the nose, mouth, and chin with no large gaps on the outside of the face, and is a solid piece of material without slits, exhalation valves, visible holes, punctures, or other openings. So again, there's a lot more in here than just that, but those are the things that we need to know, because it's really going to get into some detail about how you're going to keep the records, how you're going to maintain them, and that you will maintain them like regular medical records. And so you want to keep all that stuff in mind. So really, just a quick note to make sure you're out here. Now again, I'll say this, if you're in the medical industry or you're a medical clinic, nursing home, or something along that line, then 29 CFR 1910.502 pertains to you. And I'm going to tell you right up front, when you sit down and read this, get a cup of coffee, get a lot of Advil because you're going to need it. This one is much larger than the 501, so you want to keep that in mind. A lot of other things. The 502 even talks about having to hire a couple of safety coordinators just to monitor this program in the healthcare industry. So a lot of things going on here. We're trying to keep you up to date, and as we get new information available, it will always be on your safety library, so please check in and out there. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to send them to us. We'll be happy to do. Again, it's new. We don't know it all, but we're trying to crack the surface of it and help you get into compliance with the programs that you need. There's going to be some employee training going on. There's going to be a lot of record keeping going on and written policies that have to be in place. So just FYI, we want you to stay safe, and we want you to be citation free when it comes to protecting your employees and not getting those citations. I hope it's been helpful to you. Thank you for listening. And again, feel free to email us, send us any of your questions or comments. We'll do our best to get you some answers. Have a good day. Thank you.